What's made us successful, it's precisely the lack of that. We're just going to keep doing things the way we're doing them. That's where that curiosity power has to be really strong in terms of the people that we're hiring.
Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox experts perspective. Joining us today, we have Josh Johnston from the West Coast of Canada, Senior Director of Online Experiences for Trail Appliances. Welcome, Josh.
Kaylin, thank you for having me. Excited to be joining you today.
Awesome. So yeah, we want to talk a bit about how retailers and e-com leaders are thinking about digital experience. You and I were just chatting a lot about how AI is going to impact this stuff, but let's maybe start off by telling us a bit about your career journey and how you ended up in your current role.
Well, I'll try to do it as quickly as I can here. It's been a roller coaster. Back in my mid-20s, the plan was to be a historian. That didn't quite work out, mainly because I realized history was a hobby, not necessarily a career. But while I was doing my schooling for that, I actually worked on the fulfillment side for London Drugs when I was there, literally going out packaging boxes up and handing them off to Canada Post. And that was really my first foray into e-commerce. And I thought it gave me a good perspective of what the ground floor looks like, how logistics work and all that. 2012, moved into the e-com manager role at London Drugs and got my first taste of replatforming projects. And that's been something that's been fairly consistent throughout my career, is coming in, building the product roadmap out for an organization, assisting with major technological transformations on the e-commerce side. And I've worked at Best Buy Canada, more recently Article Furniture, and been at Trail Appliances now for 4 years. It's been great.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot of topics for us to cover today. I know you and I initially kind of got intersected when you were coming over and trying to figure out what the digital strategy was for the company you're with now. But yeah, very, very curious. Obviously, Trail Appliances, those that live in West Coast Canada and the West Coast understand this. You guys have showrooms, you have product experts, you have consultants. Yeah. Talk to us a bit about your online experience. How do you kind of fuse that together with what some of your clients are expecting offline, for lack of better words?
Yeah, and that's ultimately the challenge we need to solve for in the appliance space. This is a longer customer journey. And if you've been in any of our showrooms, particularly in the BC market, you'll know that it's a very elevated experience. So for us, we want to make sure that shopping is easy and as compelling as possible. And, I think, as a regional appliance retailer, the first step to doing that is just making sure that we're getting rid of as much friction as possible in the user journey. And also understanding that the website's role in our overall business strategy, it's making it easy for customers to really execute that research phase, knowing that, I think the latest study I saw in the United States, a bit more of a mature e-com market there, is like at the height, we're going to see like 20 to 25% of appliance sales going directly through e-commerce versus stores. So stores are going to still play a massive role, but digital plays an incredibly important role in terms of ensuring the customers have all the information they need, and we're generating strong leads for our stores, so that it's a seamless baton pass once the customer goes into store. So what that's looked like for us is a lot of focus on making sure that those core pillars of a strong digital experience are in place. And as you know, it's never ending. Once you kind of get to best practice, then you're looking at your data and ensuring you're optimizing based on the feedback you're getting from customers, both quantitatively and qualitatively. So we've taken things to a certain point, I'd say. And as I was saying off the call, we're literally going to be launching a brand new composable website this Sunday night. So that'll be another evolution of our digital experience. And again, will be a step upgrade in terms of aligning that in-store experience with our digital experience.
Yeah, no, that's great. Obviously, you have a ton of experience. You worked at another one of our customers, London Drugs, Article, a lot of West Coast great companies. Obviously, you've managed different teams as well. When you're starting to look at the funnel, does it really depend the industry the person came from? Because some industries might be more impulse purchase, shorter funnel, some are longer, or more sessions is good, conversion rate's different. So yeah, maybe talk to us a bit about, for your industry specific, Are you seeing certain teams like overinvest in certain areas when it comes to funnel analysis and underinvest in others? Curious your take there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a longer funnel. And I would say you get more signals. So, the user journey, say at a London Drugs, particularly for like Tide Pods, bad example, but for the sake of an example, I mean, that's more get as much friction out of the way as possible, make sure that you have inventory and make sure that the price point is compelling enough for the customer to pull the trigger. With appliances, you do have some customers that, their dishwasher broke and they need something ASAP. So they're similar to that Tide Pods journey, but they're still going to be checking multiple other retailer websites. And you've got to be able to bring to the table a competitive advantage around the experiential side of that, like reducing cognitive load in particular is where I'm going with that comment. Because I don't know if you guys have shopped for appliances, but even some of the really good websites, like I love what the AJ Madison team is doing. There's a lot of information being thrown at the user. So if we could make that a bit more of a seamless experience for the customer, that could give us an edge along with those core vitals that are, part of a great e-com experience. But to level that back to where you're going with the question, I'd say you need a lot of curiosity and a lot of high agency out of, the team to be able to problem solve where there could be gaps in the user journey. We have so many different user journeys in this space. You've got that replacement customer, then you got the renovating customer. They're on like a potential 2 to 3 month timeline before they're going to pull the trigger. You've got customers who maybe have already ordered one appliance, but they're looking for another appliance and making sure that we're providing what they need there. So compared to other places that I've worked at, though, I would say like you need to get your hands on all the data that you have access to. You're dealing with a lot of signals versus a lot of like, okay, everyone's going to tell you probably that the funnel isn't linear, but I'd say in this space, it's even more kind of all over the place a little bit. You need to understand what signals are important and which ones aren't. And in order to do that effectively, you've got to be looking at a broad data set. So for us, it's like live chat logs. You're literally talking to the sales staff at store level. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? It can deviate based on the regional market. That can be dependent on like the housing market, those sectors. And then aligning that with what we're seeing in Google Analytics, what we're seeing in Noibu, what we're seeing, for me in particular, I love session cam footage, just being able to align, okay, this is what I'm seeing in the chat logs. This is what my funnel data is telling me, my Looker dashboard. I have some hypothesis of what's happening here. And then I can align that with the session cam footage. And it's like, okay, now we got some ideas that we can build a feature around or a test that we may want to run and then, continue to optimize from there.
That makes a lot of sense. And for you guys, I'm curious, like what most surprised you when you looked at the journeys? Where were people actually getting most stuck and how did you find that insight?
One of the big things in our space, it's the way the appliance industry does promotions. So a lot of these offers are buy more, save more. Brands are very picky around what products qualify, which products don't qualify. And in terms of the type of offers, they can be like, free haul away on this one, but not on this model, same brand. So being really explicit in communication is essential in terms of really capturing conversion for that replacement customer and being super explicit around what the offers are. I think was something that took me a couple months to really appreciate. And we were seeing that in our chat logs, customers going in on confused, like, is this on sale? Is it not? Or why is this one on sale and this one's not on sale? And, for us on the e-com side, particularly our team, we're a bit biased, I'd say, to minimalist design, particularly coming out of the furniture space. That's been the direction we've been going. There was a bit of a wake up call there quite quickly that we were seeing in our data where it was like, no, for certain situations in the appliance conversion path, we actually need to be really in the customer space and really explicit around what the offers are. Each step of that, like add to cart fly out, and then the cart page around what the offer is. If there's an additional step they have to take, like what they have to do, making that super simple for the customer.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions. and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
Not to give away too much, but do you ever envision like taking some of those landing pages or the high consideration purchase kind of behavior and actually dynamically changing what the customer sees next, like segmenting the user kind of early on in their journey? Is that something that you guys have thought of? Where do you think the technology is for something like that?
It's definitely the direction I think we're going. I not to get too futuristic, although it's kind of here now. Probably going to butcher the name of the fashion brand, but Brunelli Cucino, I can't remember, but they have that AI front end experience. And I do think that's going to be a version of that anyways, will be a core component of the e-commerce shopping journey, probably in the next 3 years. For us, we're just getting the infrastructure in place to be able to do that. But we do have these core user journeys. Like a couple other ones that I haven't mentioned is we do have a subset of interior designers shopping the site. So what should a landing page look like for them relative to our retail customer? And then we've got B2B customers. What does that experience look like? I mean, we've got landing pages for them, and we're looking to optimize leads to send to the teams internally to be able to action those. But I think we're on the precipice of some really robust functionality in that regard, both in terms of making this easier to manage and maintain and set up, and also for those experiences to be very generative based on a bunch of data signals that we could send to these AI tools and platforms.
It's very cool. So at that point, like what becomes the constraint? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it the ability to sift through the insights? Is it capturing the insights? Like what becomes the biggest constraint in that vision?
Data. Data quality, particularly in our space. Like our product data is insane. We have a partnership with MerchKit out of Vancouver here to help us out with that. And then we use Akinio as our PIP. They're a great partner as well. But you got that side, then you got all your customer data, and then you got all your product and your behavioral data. Then you've got your more qualitative data sets, like your component library, the CMS side, all of your search data, anything that you could, your brand style guide. Sorry, is where I was trying to go there. Like all this stuff that's probably more of a lengthy prompt that you can then expose to these AI tools to provide guardrails around the type of experiences they can construct, the type of components they can pull in. But at the end of the day, it's the fuel for these tools to create these custom, somewhat personalized experiences is the quality of your data.
Yeah, that makes sense. We think data capture was a bigger problem than it is now. Most people actually have the data now, but your point, like they're capturing it from multiple different sources. So kind of like transforming it, synthesizing it, storing it in a readily queryable way is very problematic, because at the end of the day, you also don't want to spend $8,000 of tokens, right,
Yeah.
to make an extra $600. So
I think there's a cultural dynamic to it too. We did our first foray into AI with the AI tool widget on the BC site. That's on our PDP pages. And we built in tandem with a partner an orchestration layer in LangChain that's referencing product data, a few other things. I've got some agents in there as well. In my conversations with some of my peers, like I think there's a bit of a challenge and anxiety in some companies to just get going or just trying some of this stuff and beginning to build up that cultural competency internally within existing teams of how this stuff works and what to do, what not to do. I think there's this dual FOMO happening right now, but then also a lot of fear and anxiety around like governance and security and how to manage that. And so you get this kind of paralysis that I think is starting to go away, but definitely last year I was seeing a lot of that. And I think as leaders in the e-com space, we have the opportunity to just grab the flag and run with it, get a couple case studies out the door, showcase the value that these tools can provide. And then, leveraging that, start to build out the wider strategy for the organization with other internal stakeholders, partners.
makes sense. Where have you been most surprised in a positive way and then most surprised in a negative way when it comes to integration of these tools?
I would say on the content side, just the amount of orchestration up until recently you needed to really produce good content was annoying. But that probably says more about me than it does, the hardcore specialists out there that are able to get what they need out of the video and imaging tools. But there's definitely been leaps and bounds done, I'd say, in the last 2 or 3 months where Even for myself, I'm able to produce some decent imagery where I couldn't before. Where I've been really happy with the tools is data analysis and market research, particularly Gemini for market research. It's been something I utilize quite a bit. Copilot's been super good. We're a Microsoft shop internally, just helping prep for meetings and stuff like that. It's got some limitations, but it's great for just being able to go through your emails and go through meeting notes. It's just make sure that that administrative stuff, you can save some time there. But yeah, for me, I like to, particularly with Gemini, just, okay, what are we seeing in the Noibu, for example? What's going on with that housing market? And it's fairly up to date. So it'll go up to if a news story happened 2 days ago, it'll include that in its analysis. And then I can align that with all the internal data I have to go, okay, I'm starting to see a trend here. But that data analysis support's been super helpful.
It's been like pretty well documented, maybe less for your industry, that like the weather has a pretty big impact on conversion for online stores. Do you ever think we're gonna get to a point where it's getting that specific, like Nanaimo's like raining today, so pull back on your ad spend, or is that just a bit too like Terminator?
I think the challenge for us in the appliance space is just the lead time to transaction, right? So given that for some customers, it might be a month before they're willing to pull the trigger, may not be the best decision to pull ad spend in that moment. But I think what that type of analysis is going to help us with is when we're looking back, why did we see the results that we saw? And was weather a factor in that? We'll have more confidence in saying yes because of the analysis these tools can do, or no, if there wasn't much of an impact.
Makes sense. How are you thinking about how this intersects with your headcount planning moving forward? Like the distribution of your team? How do all these things kind of intersect?
Yeah, I think for the way I view it is it's an opportunity to be a productivity multiplier for the existing team. So it's looking at the great people that we have on staff at Trail and how can we make life easier for them and how can we 2x 3x their productivity, and of course everybody wants that. So I think for us it's looking and staying on top of what's possible with these tools. For some roles, the impact is going to be a bit minor. For others, it could be quite substantial. But we want to make sure that we're doing that analysis first before we go to HR with a headcount request, just to ensure that we've explored that option. And I think we've seen that with some companies. I think Shopify had their memo where Toby was really pushing that. Makes a ton of sense. Is AI gonna, there's still things they can't do well, right? And it's tough in those situations. I know those team members wish it was able to support them more. And then for others, it's more, if it can, just making sure they're trained in order to use those tools effectively. And that's a tough one, right? Because it's evolving so quickly. What was cutting edge 6 months ago isn't necessarily the case now. So that's where that curiosity power has to be really strong in terms of the people that we're hiring, right? Like they have to have that motivation to want to learn stuff, that comfort level with not always knowing or not feeling like you're always up to speed with the latest and greatest. You have to be consistently learning.
Very cool. As we look to wrap up, a question for you is, as you're recruiting for your team, and I'll speak super candidly, we've changed our engineering persona. Whereas it's kind of, and I hate to call it engineering, but it's pretty black and white. Some engineers are like, these AI tools are stupid, they're wrong, blah, 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 blah. Some potentially lean in too much. But have you changed your persona for hiring around this as well? Like we saw in our business probably 18 months ago, kind of the flock started to split, where it's some people wanted to hang on to how things were done 10 years ago, or in some cases actually 3 years ago. But yeah, I'm curious, has this influenced how you look at hiring?
So on our dev side, where we've got a really good core team, so haven't done any hiring recently, but what's made us successful, it's precisely the lack of that. We're just going to keep doing things the way we're doing them. What I'm seeing in the broader market right now, and this is how we're structured, we see a smaller team of senior talent that's leveraging these tools versus a large team of junior to mid-level that maybe isn't as well equipped to leverage these tools. And I think Lulu, Aritzia, others, like hearing similar vibes there. I'm not sure it's the same for you guys, but for us, it's, you need somebody who understands development enough to get the most out of the AI tool. Somebody that doesn't have that experience or skill set. And again, they have to have the right attitude too. Like you can have a senior dev that wants to continue to do things the way they've done things for 10 years. That's not success either. If they have that curiosity and they want to stay on top of things and they've got that experience, like that's super valuable, because now you're getting 2x, 3x, 4x productivity from a senior dev. Like think from a salary perspective, what the cost would be to try to get that at a junior mid dev level. The math becomes very favorable. And that's not to say like we're against junior devs and all that, because the junior devs that are coming out now, right? Like they're native to a lot of these tools and experiences. They just are products. They just need the experience, right? So in certain situations that can absolutely make sense. For us right now, though, we're built around a core team of senior devs.
That's a really interesting insight. And I also think like it's dependent. And what I mean by that is like ideally you have a senior person that's bought in, but in some other, and I'm not talking dev now, just in general, a junior person fully bought in is definitely better than an intermediate or senior person not bought in certain roles, right? Like our, for example, cold calling team. Like, yeah, guys, like I get it. 2019, the glory days, you just sat and cranked dials, but like now you have to use an auto dialer, which like only connects you once someone's answered you. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of adapt, or you end up in this strange scenario where like you have someone who's just trying to like pick all the vegetables instead of using the tractor. You know what I mean? And like maybe like certain vegetables you need to hand pick forever, but like you should probably use the tractor. Josh, this is a great combo. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, it was nice catching up.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.